Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, I'm going to react to 25 funny differences between Americans and Canadians. So, Canada and America, really similar in a lot of ways. The landmass of both countries is quite similar, both huge countries. You know, the accent sounds similar, they both use the dollar, but really that's probably where most of the similarities end. You know, the population of America is probably close to 10 times that of Canada. Canada, a lot of it is really, really cold, uninhabitable. And the cultures of the two places. There are places in America that probably have a similar culture to America, but I think on the whole, the cultures are quite different. But yeah, I've never been to Canada. I do want to come, but I thought this video would be really fun just to really highlight some of the differences between the two, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who live outside of America and Canada that probably think they're super similar. So yeah, this should be really fun. Let's do it.
Canada and the US have somewhat of a love-hate relationship. It's a sibling rivalry that goes back centuries. So what exactly are the differences between the two? Today, we're going to take a look at how the longest unprotected border in the world has defined North America. I'm Mike with List 25, and these are 25 funny differences between Canadians and Americans.
Let's go.
Canadians tend to trust authority, whereas Americans are suspicious of it. This goes back to the fact that the Canadians remained loyal to the crown, while America showed King George the door.
24.
Canadians bond over hockey. Americans bond over football.
Right.
In general, Canadians also put less emphasis on sports.
23.
Really?
Canadians spend a lot of time comparing themselves to the US. Americans don't think about Canada very often at all. Actually, almost never. I love you, Ken.
Savage.
And all my Canadian friends. This is in jest, dear God.
22.
Some parts of Canada sell milk in bags.
Really?
Bagged milk would be highly suspicious in the US.
Bagged milk.
I'd totally drink it. Milk's great. Best beverage. No, absolutely.
No, milk is fantastic.
Milk is the best beverage in the world.
Yes, it is. And it comes in chocolate.
Yeah. I actually don't like chocolate as much.
That's weird.
I prefer white. I can do it. I prefer...
21.
The US sees itself as a melting pot. That was a good restaurant. While Canada sees itself as a mosaic. The difference is very slight, but basically in the US, there's more mixing and blending between immigrant cultures, while in Canada, immigrants tend to keep more of their language and traditions rather than mix with others.
20.
I see.
Canadians have more of a tall poppy syndrome, which is a tendency to distrust or discredit anyone who stands out in a prominent position or wealth. In this sense, Canada is a lot more like Europe. Conformity is more encouraged in Canada than in the US. If America does well at anything, it's encouraging innovation and non-conformity.
19.
I will say that general tall poppy syndrome is diminishing a bit here in the UK in general. It does seem like the world is becoming a bit more globalized and people are trying to encourage, exceptionalism more here.
18.
Canadians love their flag, but Americans seem to love their flag more. Seriously, nobody beats America at flags. You can't beat Canadians at maple syrup, though.
18.
Canadians put more emphasis on higher education. Actually, Canada puts more emphasis on it than any other country in the world. It leads the OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, with 53% of the population having a college education.
Wow.
The OECD average is 32%.
That's crazy.
17.
Canadians
Impressive.
generally approve of their government. Americans hate and distrust theirs. This boils down
That is a big generalization. Would you guys say that's true? Americans watching this? I'd love to know.
to the fact that the Canadians see government as a good thing, while Americans see it as a necessary evil.
16.
I can see
Americans
both
are
sides.
more individualistic. This goes back to the Wild West mentality. The very word Canada, on the other hand, is derived from a local Iroquoian word for village. Canadians are more communally minded.
Interesting.
15.
Canada's right wing is America's left wing. In the political sense, Canadian politics tend to be more liberal. This doesn't mean that Canada doesn't have conservative politics. It certainly does. The political system is a lot less polarized, however, and doesn't pull to the extremes as much. It has 5 primary political parties.
14.
Both Americans and Canadians think they're more free. In Canada, this is
I think every country thinks that, though. You know, there's going to be people that think their country's the most free, the most, you know, the least constrained.
due to more progressive policies. In the US, it's due to lack of government policies.
13.
Americans are more confrontational. Not necessarily in a bad way, but Canadians are more likely to just hold everything in and let it stew. Or apologize.
I see.
12.
Canadians pretend Canada has no problems. America pretends the US just has quirks.
11.
Canadians, is that true? Do you guys pretend Canada has no problems? Really? I don't know. I find that hard to believe. There might be some that do, but there's probably a lot of, you know, realistic Canadians that recognize the country's issues. Every country has issues. There's no perfect country.
Canadians don't get to experience the joys of Pandora and Spotify due to licensing restrictions.
10.
Although Canadians do feel quite a bit of connection with their province/city, Americans identify much more with their state than they do with the country as a whole, except for Quebec, Canada's Texas.
9.
Canadians talk about the War of 1812 a lot. Americans aren't quite sure what that is. Boston Tea Party, anyone?
8.
Canadians are more passive-aggressive. A good example of this would be tribalism and all of its derivatives. While it's more overt in the US, that doesn't mean it's any less in Canada. It just comes out in a more backhanded fashion.
7.
Canadians brag about how cold it is,
Interesting.
while Americans brag about how warm it is. Unless you live in Minnesota, then you're basically Canadian.
6.
Americans are much more polarized on almost everything. But then again, there are more people in just California than all of Canada, so it
Now that is just mad, isn't it? One state has more people than the entire country of Canada. Crazy.
makes sense that Canadians would be more unified.
5.
In the US, talking about American politics is taboo, but in Canada, talking about American politics is a national pastime.
4.
Canadians are more likely to take off their shoes in the house. Of course, this depends on location, but in many parts of the US, walking with shoes in the house is acceptable.
But I just don't know why, unless your house is completely wood floored, you're going to ruin the carpet if you wear shoes on it. It's going to, even if there's no dirt on your shoe, it's going to compress the carpet down. The carpet isn't going to be as fluffy as before. But I guess that would also happen if you walk around barefoot because of the pressure and the weight. Here we in the UK, it's common. I think everyone just takes their shoes off at the door. Do you guys take your shoes off at the door watching this, or do you guys leave your shoes on?
Maybe it's the cowboy influence.
3.
Canadians think Canada is completely different from the US. Americans, on the other hand, don't notice much of a difference between the two countries. As a note, from a European perspective, any differences will seem a bit overstated.
Yeah.
2.
They do seem very
Americans
similar.
have it easier when it comes to shopping online. In Canada, many stores don't offer online shopping.
Really?
And many of them don't even have a website to begin with.
What?
1.
Canada has 2 official languages on a national level, English and French.
French, yeah.
Americans have no official language on a national level. Each state decides whether or not to adopt English as an
I see.
official language.
That's crazy.
Tristan, we should go to Canada one day.
I'd love to.
Let's do it. You want to go now?
Sure.
We got some hockey to watch. Actually, by the time this video comes out, I think the Stanley Cup playoffs will be over.
No, hockey anyways.
Go Preds! What? No, we're gonna go watch hockey. Let's go. To hockey!
Fun video. Yeah, it definitely seems that the US and Canada have more similarities than differences, to be honest. I think a lot of the differences mentioned in that list are kind of very, it's kind of in the minutia a bit. I think, you know, on a grand scale, you probably wouldn't notice them unless you spent, you know, maybe a lot of time in both countries. And then if someone asked you what differences, you know, you observed, that's what you'd mention. Like for me, you know, like being from Britain, from the UK, They're, you know, apart from the big three that I mentioned at the start of the video, population size, maybe accent, even though the accent is kind of similar, and climate, yeah, the countries seem quite similar, but there are differences too, for sure. Like, Canadians watching this and Americans, do you guys agree with this list? What are your general thoughts? I'd love to know. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.